welcome back to Kill Rock Radio here on KillRockRadio.com. My name is Rocky, back up in this motherfucker for yet another installment on this episode of Kill Rock Radio. As usual, we got a lot of comments from you guys, so we'll get into all that shit and whatever topics come from that. We have something that we haven't had in a long time. In a blast from the past, we got some fucking Tommy Vext news. So let's go ahead and get the Tommy Vext stuff out of the way. Tommy Vext is a guy that I thought maybe I would never have to talk about again. For those of you who listen to the show, you've heard the whole saga with him. We've essentially been chronicling all the various dumb shit he's been doing, his relative career suicide. For those of you who don't know Tommy Vext, I'll give you the short version. He became the lead singer for a band called the Bad Wolves. Now, the Bad Wolves had one big hit song when he was their singer. That hit song was a cover song, which was written by Dolores O'Riordan and performed by the Cranberries. It's called Zombie. They covered that song. They didn't really change it. They didn't artfully make it their own or anything like that. They made a version that outside of the vocal is almost identical to the already big hit song. So of course it ended up being a hit, and Tommy Vext decided it was because he was a fucking genius.
You dumb bastard.
And from there on in, it's just been a comedy of errors. He, in his own words, came out as conservative. I don't know why the fuck you would have to come out as a Republican. There's only two parties in this country. You're either a Republican or a Democrat, and you don't have to come out as either. You choose it. It's how you vote. It should not be your entire personality.
You don't mess around with God's America.
In the case of Tommy Vext, it pretty much is his entire personality. Other than that, like many former alcoholics, he loves to talk endlessly about his sobriety. He loves to look down on everyone. He loves to talk about how fucking cool he is. And now he's back in the news, finally, after a long time. And really, it's two stories. One of them certainly much more serious than the other. So we'll get to the lighter one first, if this is light at all. So Doc Coyle, who's the guitarist for Bad Wolves, he and Tommy Vext have the most direct beef. The rumors, the gossip mill, says that Tommy Vext put Doc Coyle in a UFC-type chokehold, and that was one of the final straws in regards to him getting fired, and not him being a Republican, which is what he went out and told everyone, that basically he was fired and railroaded for sharing his fucking ideology or whatever.
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch. Your thoughts ain't my thoughts.
And really the issue is just he's a big fucking meathead. He can't understand very basic shit. It's a peek into his narcissism that he could choke motherfuckers and then be like, why did I get fired? Could you imagine going into your job and one of the guys who works there, somebody who's been there longer than you, Doc Coyle is one of the original members of that band. So you went and you got one of the most senior motherfuckers at your company and you just choked the motherfucker out. Would you even bother showing up at work the next day? Tommy Vext would. He would show up expecting a goddamn a promotion and an apology.
Laughable, man.
Doc Coyle has come out on radio shows, including his own podcast, talking a shit, I guess, about Tommy. And Tommy, ever since he got fired from the band, he has been the ex-girlfriend from hell. Like, they fired him years ago, multiple years ago, and he has still made it a huge part of his online presence that he used to be the singer for the Bad Wolves. If you go on to, well, actually, this is actually part of the story. Doc Coyle had posted basically that Tommy Vext was continuing to harass the band Bad Wolves have hired another singer. They've put out an entire other fucking album. And, in the meantime, Tommy Vext has still not gotten over it because he has had zero success on his own. Not to say he's not talented dude. He's creatively, he's nothing. And so Doc Coyle came out and posted on X. He said, and I quote, "Apparently sharing a public article is the same as this, being posted by you-know-who in the last few weeks, being publicly and serially harassed. When will it stop?" And then he posted a bunch of screen caps from Tommy Vext's shit where he claims that the band didn't play on their album. Their new singer is lip syncing. He's got merch in his web store that's like "Bring Back Tommy," and it's the Bad Wolves logo, but the wolf has like these really lame like anime tears, and it just looks fucking awful and half-assed and mediocre. Doc continues. He says, "I'm not beefing. We're being defamed daily by an expert. People hate us just for existing based on lies, and I'm sick of it." The issue that Doc Coyle has that's not really ever going to go away, I don't think, is that they only have one hit song. When you look up Bad Wolves, the thing that's going to come up is the song that is fronted by Tommy Vext. And so new people who are finding the band via this song, like I see that song, that videos, it gets reacted to on YouTube by some of these bigger, reactors, people who break down the songs and shit like that. So let's say somebody does that and they have a big following, and let's say 10,000 motherfuckers go check out Bad Wolves. They're looking for the Tommy Vext Bad Wolves, and when they get there, they find the new Bad Wolves, which has the Tommy Vext replacement, who's just completely fucking generic himself, DL something or other. But I'm sure it's confusing if you don't know the whole thing, and you might go to Tommy's Twitter or Instagram or whatever and say, "Hey man, what the fuck?" And you get this, you fall down this rabbit hole into the world of Tommy Vext. So Doc continues, "People will say I'm starting drama for posting his words, his posts. I just want it to stop. I don't have an issue with anyone. I'm friends with everybody. I hate this shit. Just want to play music and have fun. You gonna believe me or someone who has started shit and has drama with every band, musician, ex, etc. Who else do I have drama with? I am all about resolution, but I won't be abused and be told to make up with my abuser." And that's the thing. Once again, if you're someone who's looking for Bad Wolves, you want the Tommy Vext and these guys version. So it's good, why don't you guys get back together? The bottom line is Tommy Vext has made that impossible. If I was Doc Coyle, just as a fucking man, I'm not going to go up to this motherfucker who choked me out and be like, "Hey brother, let's get on the road." Fuck off, dude. If Bad Wolves could find a way to get a second hit that does not involve Tommy Vext, then maybe people could start to move on. But as I said, when people discover this band, they are discovering essentially the Tommy Vext version of the band. If you go to Tommy Vext's website or Instagram or whatever, even though it's been years, he is still fucking belly aching about it. I'm sure some of this stuff he's doing could rise to the level of slander or something like that. But once again, like, do you want to get involved with this motherfucker anymore? It seems like Doc Coyle just wants to be separate. Now, the final thing that Doc was referring to there is sort of the bridge into this second Tommy Vext story, which is a much more serious story. Now, Tommy Vext got arrested, which was the original, as I said, my homie Mr. Death Metal who sent me that message. So looking into that, Doc references all of Tommy's ex-relationships, whether it be bands, ex-girlfriends, friends, his own brother. He has tumultuous relationships every fucking where. And this is very common with narcissistic fucks because he can't see any spots where he is to blame. he says, oh no, I don't want any drama at all. All these other people want drama with me. The reality is that's not how people's lives are. Most people lead generally drama-free lives. When you have all this drama in your life, it's normally because you are doing that shit. Like, we make decisions. We all live in the world of our own creation. And what that means is we all make decisions, and those decisions shape the world that is directly around us. Tommy Vext is a narcissistic fuckhead whose decisions lead to all this fucking confrontation. So that being said, Tommy Vext got arrested. I want him to be able to sort of tell it in his own words, but he posted a statement with his girlfriend at his side. The thing was interminable. So I'll show you some clips from it just so I guess you can hear it in his own words.
It's been a nightmare of a weekend. So Saturday, I was in Vegas, and basically, I had gotten a call from Hannah in the morning first that there's a member of her family who is an abuser who is not allowed around her or her children. And we believe that they got wind that we were relocating the family to Phoenix on Wednesday to our new place.
I believe she lives in Arizona. He lives in Vegas. I guess his girlfriend's father had a weird reaction to it. Tommy claims that he saw his girlfriend's father strike his girlfriend 3 times.
And then I started to hear yelling, and her abuser, who's her father, he came into frame and he said, I'm gonna bash your fucking skull in, and then grabbed my girlfriend by the sleeve of her shirt and began punching her. And I saw him strike you 3 times.
The entire thing on FaceTime.
Yeah.
Which drove him into a frenzy, which, it would anybody. If I had to see somebody that I cared about get hit multiple times and I was like towns away, I would be panicking too. But so Tommy sees that. I guess he calls 911. He starts driving out there. By the time he gets out there, his girlfriend has been arrested.
I packed up bags, threw them in my car, and began to drive from, I'm in Enterprise, Las Vegas, driving to Payson, Arizona, which is 6.5, 7 hours away. And I'm just freaking out. I'm calling her sponsor, calling all these people. Then I'm calling her and I can't get a hold of her. Then she calls me back and is like, I'm being arrested. In an attempt to protect the abuser, the mother lied to the police with the father and said that she struck her child or spanked her child. So they took her away.
And then when he gets back home to make a statement, they arrest him because the family claimed that he was making threats towards them, that he was going to kill the motherfucker or whatever.
I drove to the Payson police precinct and asked to speak to the arresting officer, asked to make a statement, and I gave them my name, and they said, we have to place you under arrest. So another family member had been alerted that I was driving to go pick her up and called the police and said I was going to come there and kill everybody, which I went there, I had no possession of a firearm. I wasn't even mad. I was scared. And
you just watched me.
Yeah, and I had to watch her get assaulted, and as a man, just to see the person that you love, and I'm so far away, and I blame myself that I didn't move her sooner because I know how bad it is. And the police were like, look, we know this is bullshit, but we literally have to put you under arrest. So, I was like, all right. So they fingerprinted me.
I only cut it way down because this motherfucker is so long-winded. He needs you to know every single detail of the day. He's like, oh, it was a windy day and I was having a slight headache. I had taken 3 ibuprofen. It was 12:18 p.m. You know, like he's giving you every fucking detail of the day, which, you know, and I don't want to say he's lying because this is, you know, this is very serious. Allegations of his girlfriend being assaulted. You know, when people lie, a lot of times, like they have to give you every fucking detail surrounding everything because they've worked their alibi so much that they came up with all these details. A lot of times in real life, you don't notice all the details. That kind of speaks to a little bit of manipulation. I won't say lying because, as I said, the woman's crying, Tommy cries. I'm sure he saw something that was fucked up. I'm not saying he's a liar, but I'm saying, you know, Tommy Vext, it's odd to see him so moved when he's a guy who's been accused of abusing women. It's weird that now he's all of a sudden like Captain Homestead and he's here to protect everyone from abusers. Their statement has a lot of hallmarks of like someone who is working the story to look a certain way. He said that the dad was throwing haymakers. And so if a man, 65 years old, whatever, punching a 30-something-year-old woman in the face with haymakers, you would think there would be a mark. You know what I'm saying? So if the cops show up and there's no marks on her where there are marks on the guy, what I'm saying is we don't know the story. And the story we're getting from Tommy Vext seems massaged, if you know what I'm saying. He puts these statements out like he's the goddamn, like he's a senator or something. Nobody gives a fuck. I waited weeks. This happened weeks ago. And I purposely waited weeks because in his statement, he has so much delusional shit that he says. Going through this entire story, which, as I said, is terrible. If this woman had her dad attack her in front of her children, that's a terrible story, dude. And I'm sad that happened to her. But they tell that whole story, and then from there, Tommy directs it back to Doc Coyle.
I'm sure Doc and them are trying to, you know, like people are trying to blow this out of proportion or make it like, oh, I did something. And, you know, they're desperately trying to like save their careers by defaming me. But the reality is that my girlfriend was violently assaulted and I showed up, you know, and I did all the right things.
Like, you were just crying and Mr. like, oh, I couldn't be there for you. And Doc Coyle, you motherfucker, and the media and all that shit. Like, he is so fucking self-absorbed that even in the midst of all this terrible shit, like I said, if he had to watch his girlfriend get pummeled by her father, that has to be gut-wrenching. But after that and getting arrested and all that, he's like, oh, I didn't get arrested. I walked into a jail cell and walked out.
Everything's fine. You know, I'm like, people are like, oh, Tommy's arrested. And I'm like, I walked inside a jail cell for like literally an hour and a half and walked out.
That's getting arrested, you motherfucker. Could you just leave? If you couldn't just leave, then that means your dumbass was arrested. I would tell Tommy Vext, when you're massaging these stories, maybe add a couple things in where maybe you're a little questionable. He always makes the story where like, man, I'm a fucking hero and everyone's just fucking with me. All I'm saying is like, okay, the dad pummeled her. That sounds terrible. When the cops got there, obviously they didn't see any evidence, because I would assume the girlfriend would have said, hey, he hit me. What the fuck? And if she had any, marks on her, I would think that the guy would be arrested. But she got arrested. What did she get arrested for? Tommy got arrested apparently for making threats, I guess. And, he claims the family is just protecting the father. That's certainly possible. That happens. So I'm not going to say he's bullshit there. As I said, the way this video is set up, he's just a sweet Christian boy and everyone's fucking with him.
And as much as it's aggravating You know, we can't be Christians and then persecute and hate, because these people are sick. And
For those who trespass against us.
yeah. So anyway, thank you, and sorry, it's been very emotional for us.
It's a lot.
I hope, you know, if his girlfriend had gone through that, I hope he can get her out of that situation. I hope she doesn't cross him. You know what, Tommy? Cut her some slack. She's been through some shit. Cut her some slack, please. And so I hope it works out for everybody. I hope y'all, you know, your love grows and all that shit. I hope you can get her away from this abusive situation and lead her to a new light. And best to you, Mazel Tov. Talk to you later, Tommy Vext. Hopefully not too soon. But anyways. So next we have a story involving one of my absolute favorite things in the world. It's rock star beef. On one side, we have the grizzled veteran of the 80s, my homeboy Sebastian Bach, former lead singer for Skid Row, one of the more popular metal bands to come out of the 80s. Sebastian Bach, back in his day, was known for his beautiful singing voice and his quivering lip and his gorgeous hair. And then on the other hand, we have Ronnie Radke, lead singer for Falling in Reverse, a band that is very much doing well right now. Ronnie was a dude that I've probably heard a whole hell of a lot more about his fucking Twitter account than I have his music. Ronnie's in the news right now because they just did a collab with Jelly Roll, of all fucking people. And that dude, you know, whether you like the current country music or not, I think it's fucking abysmal. But in that world, Jelly Roll is a top dude. He's actually like famous on a mainstream level. And to have him doing a song with Falling in Reverse, that can only be a win. A lot of people are calling Falling in Reverse big time fucking sellouts for doing a country metal song. What I'm annoyed with, you know, country music, I'm off the topic, but we can also make this like almost a separate topic. I have not heard the song in completion. That's why I'm not doing any sort of like formal thing. But I heard essentially the chorus and a little bit more. Super catchy. In today's climate, what constitutes selling out is very different than what it used to be. Back in the day, it was a very low ceiling for what people would call you a sellout for. Like, dude, back in the 90s, Nirvana, Soundgarden, a lot of the great bands that we now think of as the greats, the titans of that era, they all faced backlash for simply signing a record deal. Nirvana were called sellouts for moving from Sub Pop Records to Geffen, even though it's absolutely what they had to do to take the next step in their careers. People fault artists for selling their art, and when you do that, you're a fucking idiot.
Calm down, girl.
You gotta go all the way back to the fucking, like, the cavemen to find artists that were just putting shit up just to be like, hey, I saw a thing. You know, you do that when you're younger and stuff like that, but when it's time to be a professional artist, what that entails is that you will create your art not to keep, not to put online and have everybody tell you how cool you are, but to sell it.
Am I wrong?
No.
Am I wrong?
Go back to fucking Van Gogh. Go back to Rembrandt. Go back to fucking Da Vinci. Every one of them, their greatest works were pieces of art that were commerce. They were sold. You were looking to sell these pieces. That is what art is. You create the art. It's a piece of you. You sell it to the world. That's how the job works. And you know, people oftentimes like, "What, dude? Why you gotta charge?" Go fuck yourself. Don't enjoy this art then, you fucking rotten piece of shit. Anyways, point is, in today's climate, a metal band, pop metal, heavy metal, whatever the fuck you want to call Falling in Reverse, like I said, I'm not familiar enough to make a claim. as to what they even are. But from what I've heard, they're definitely metallic. And if you're a heavy metal band in 2024 who's trying to make money, sell the venues out, get the merch out there and all that shit, let's say you're Ronnie Radke and you're looking at your music and you're saying, God damn, this is great stuff. If I could only find a way to get a motherfucker back here and to see my wares and to see what I've got to offer. A lot of times you need a fucking hook. And that's essentially what this is. At this point, if you listen to modern country music, it's just like wannabe hick rap shit, or it's soft rock essentially. And for those worlds to start to cross-pollinate, it makes sense to me. And quite frankly, right now, country music is much more popular than metal. It sucks to say, because I fucking hate country music.
To me, you seem like a dude who knows what's up.
But yeah, so in terms of the song itself, super poppy, super hooky. If it means that they can do a big tour or something like that, then it's worth it, dude. I mean, there's no more MTV. You're not going to get a metal song played on the radio. I mean, what could you possibly do to sell your shit?
Okay, good luck, ho. Next call.
Anyways, sorry for the tangent. So this beef stems back to some shit that Sebastian Bach said about Falling in Reverse, because what happened was Falling in Reverse was going to do a festival show, right? Well, turns out their laptops didn't make it to the show. And so they had to cancel their fucking show, which led a lot of people to say, well, I mean, the band all made it. The goddamn instruments all made it. There is electricity. Theoretically, you should be able to play a show even if your laptops don't show up. I understand a lot of bands, they sweeten up the show with little drops and sound effects and shit like that from their laptops. You know, it's become an important member of the band to be like essentially the media player who's dropping the shit throughout the song. I get the value of that. So Sebastian Bach basically talked shit about them for not being able to do a show because their laptops didn't make it. And Ronnie Radke went back at him. I guess in 2023, they Falling in Reverse put out a music video for the song Watch the World Burn. There's a Sebastian Bach lookalike being hit in the face with a laptop. So that leads us up to very recently, where Sebastian Bach was doing a Q&A for Metal Hammer, I believe. And somebody asked if he would ever make peace with Ronnie Radke. And Sebastian Bach replied, and I quote, "I don't know who that is. The only way I know that name is from the internet. So they might as well be a Republican politician or a reality TV show star or YouTuber. Whatever opinion someone has on the internet, for me to give a shit, I would have to respect their music first. And I never heard one note of that band. The only reason I know them is because they seem to love their computers more than real rock and roll." Now, Ronnie Radke, one thing I've noticed about Ronnie here, fucking Ronnie does not let one word slide. I don't know if he's hypersensitive. I don't know what Big Ronnie's issue is, but he always seems to clap back at motherfuckers. You can't say shit to him without him coming back at you. And Sebastian Bach, I'm a fan, you know, but at the same time, you have to admit he's essentially a washed out 80s dude. So if you're Ronnie Radke and you're doing jams with fucking Jelly Roll and you're doing big tours right now and you're making money and all that good shit, like, why even bother with a guy like fucking like Sebastian Bach? But not being one to let some shit slide, Ronnie Radke took to his Twitter and posted a searing clapback at my boy Seabass. So let's check that out.
Sebastian Bach. Sebastian Bach on Ronnie Radke. I don't know who that is. Sebastian, you know exactly who I am. You talked a lot of crap about me for years. This whole pretending that you don't know I exist is just so phony, just like everything else. That's why nobody likes you.
So Ronnie Radke hit this motherfucker like straight up diss style. Like he went and Googled this motherfucker. So he says, The whole pretending you don't know I exist is just so phony, which that is a go-to Hollywood diss. You try to take the wind out of somebody's sail by pretending like they're nobody, you know?
Your band doesn't want you back. No, they never want you back. You're literally the most insufferable human being of all time with terrible vocals. My old band, Escape the Fate, they're still my friends. I have lifelong friends. You have no lifelong friends. Nobody likes you. And that's a sad, miserable existence because you have to play covers of Skid Row songs because your own band doesn't even want you back at the blackjack table at the Excalibur at the Circle Bar at like midnight when you're exhausted for a 60-year-old man that looks like Donald Trump meets Caitlyn Jenner.
Once again, Sebastian Bach has been doing it for decades. Of course, he can't hack it like he used to in the 80s and 90s, but I mean, what are we talking about? He's an old guy. It almost feels like, I hate to use the term punching down, because normally when people use that term, it's just complete stupid bullshit. But in this case, if you're fucking Ronnie Radke, you're in such a better position than this fucking guy. He's doing a fucking Q&A just to get some money to keep the ball rolling and shit. And you're like, hey man, you ain't shit. I mean, hit him with the Donald Trump meets Caitlyn Jenner. That was sweet stuff. And then to go to this weird, the insinuation of this video.
Also, Sebastian, I have a video of you that you don't want out, and I'm never gonna put it out. There's the bird.
I will say, Ronnie Radke, it was genius to the still shot that he pulled. Oh my God. That motherfucker that Sebastian there, he looks as disheveled as humanly fucking possible with a ball in his mouth.
You are getting me rock hard.
But, you know, once again, knowing Sebastian Bach from the 80s, if you told me there's a video of him doing sexual shit and pretending to be a dog or whatever, I believe that. That sounds on par for him.
You know what this video is? Woof, 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 woof. Go fetch the ball. Go fetch the ball, Sebastian. You remember that one? I saw how your dick is small too. You have a tiny dick. You're like 6'8" with the fucking smallest dick I've ever seen in my fucking life. It's insane. I can't believe your dick is so small because you're so tall. You're like tall and big, dude. So it's so bizarre that you're like a fucking tall giant with a tiny ass dick. Your dick is tiny, bro.
Brought up his small dick. Look, if somebody's dick comes out, you're gonna look at their dick. That's how it goes. I would ask Ronnie, was his dick hard? I would like to know more about this dick.
Jesus Christ, man, there's just some things you don't talk about in public.
You say it's very small. Was it just floppity, or was he capable of more? Was he hard? Was he, like on swole? I'd like to know more about this because to say the guy has a tiny dick, also Seabass is like 6'5" or some shit like that. And he's a big dude. So sometimes when you're a big dude, you might have a normal sized penis and it might just look small on your fucking giant body. So I'm just trying to give my boy Seabass all the credit possible. I'm sure he's done plenty with that dick of his, and I'm sure it's fine.
And I'm telling you right now, leave me the fuck alone, you washed up piece of shit loser. Fuck you, fuck anybody that actually pretends to be your friend, and fuck everything you stand for, you loser. Have a nice day, fucker.
The video's not out there and you're like, oh, I would never do that. But you make these insinuations and you say his dick is tiny. I say, put your money where your mouth is. If you're Seabass, I might even say, put a dick pic out.
Hell no, to the no, no, no.
Because who cares if you're Seabass? Who cares at this point? It's not like you're going to go run for Congress or some shit. Like, you're just hanging on barely. What if Seabass, like I said, what if he was not aroused and he's capable of much more? If I was him, I would try to clear my name and clap back with a sweet dong shot. Ball is in your court, Seabass. As of yet, Sebastian Bach has not responded. I pray that he does, because anything he says, Ronnie Radke is going to come back at this motherfucker with all cannons blazing. So anyways, moving on. We're going to go ahead and get to our listener comments section. info@killrockradio.com is where you would send your emails, any comments, any shit like that. Of course, you get all up in our DMs @or/killrockradio, all lowercase, no spaces. The show has reached 5,000 subs. Thank you guys so much. That is fucking mind-blowing that there are 5,000 people out there that would hit the fucking sub button on this shit. So thank you guys so much. I very much appreciate it. So now the channel has reached this level of monetization and shit like that. However, I very much do not want to be one of these fucking weirdos on here. And I'm not dissing the people who do this. This is how y'all make your fucking living. I'm not into like people paying me $2 to read fucking shitty comments about me. Like, I'm not into a lot of that stuff. However, we are working on a few things to generate money for the channel, which of course 100% of the shit that comes into the channel, whether it be through killrockradio.com, where we do have some merch, whether you go there and buy that stuff or you get involved in some of this other shit we're cooking up right now, regardless, it 100% will go back to the channel, getting better shit, better equipment. So who knows, as the channel grows, as it starts to, as I said, generate some commerce, I could start to put that back into the channel in other ways. I'd love to get some other voices on the channel. I would really like the channel to evolve to some shit that's beyond this podcast. I'd like to have actual programming and shit that people would like to hear. So as I said, any comments you would have, any shit you want to get involved with, info@killrockradio.com or up in our DMs. Anyways, let's go ahead and get to your comments. So we do have several messages from you guys about a lot of the stuff we talked about last episode. If you'll remember, we talked a little bit about Kiss and them selling out to Pop House and all that. We got a couple comments on that. My homeboy Spooky Kid Space Ace says, for me, Kiss died when Ace left for the second time. It's just not the same when someone else puts on the makeup of the Spaceman and the Catman. That makes sense to me because I was not like a huge Kiss fan, but my dad was a huge Kiss fan, so I would see a lot of their journey via him. And I know there was original Kiss, and then they added some guys, but those guys had different looks. That Eric Carr, I remember him being the drummer, and he had like a Catman look, but they changed the face paint, so like it was a different thing. And then Vinnie Vincent had a whole different thing. So like it was almost like Kiss was evolving. You lost guys, you add guys, almost like, fucking G.I. Joe or something. But once they brought Ace and Peter Chris back and then shit canned them again and then made it clear, listen, the band is us now. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. We are Kiss. Everyone else is hired going forward. I could understand looking at that and saying, you know what, that's not the same band. Fuck you guys. So anyways, thank you very much. Moving on. Next, my homie Ellery Parsons says, how many of the members are getting a cut of the sale? And big ups to my homie Rock and Roll Negro, who came in and answered the question. He says, there's only 2 Kiss members, Paul and Gene. Tommy and Eric are employees. Ace and Peter sold their share of the partnership in 1996, and I would bet that they got less than $300 million. So yeah, I don't know what their business setup was. Ace claims to have gotten royalty checks up until just recently, so I don't know exactly what all is going on, but essentially, my homeboy here is right, who was saying that it's Paul and Gene. They are the main motherfuckers who are enriching themselves from this sale. So moving on, well, of course, anytime you talk about Pantera, there's going to be a strong fan reaction. Pantera fans are some of the rowdiest motherfuckers that there are. So, of course, talking about Pantera last episode, we got a lot of replies. I got a few of them here. My homie Philip Spire says, this is all I got to say about Pantera. This is my band. Been since the beginning. I love these guys. I've always been on Team Daryl. Phil was the dick that broke the band. with all that, I don't mind that they have reformed. Music is for the next generation. Just sorry I could never be part of this new band. I loved the Abbott brothers too much and still hold feelings. Well, you know what? If you're not from Texas, if you haven't been around Texas, then you don't know what big folk heroes, Pantera and the Abbott brothers specifically, Diamond Vinny. It's more than music. Those guys were business owners. Those guys were a big part of the community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Here in Houston, if you go around to clubs and you bring up Diamond Vinny, somebody is inevitably going to have a story. And it's not some like story they heard on VH1 or some shit. It's like Dimebag was at my cousin's party. You know, like it always starts off with just like some very real, relatable human being shit. And that's why people love those guys so much. When I went to go see those guys in Dallas, when they opened up for Metallica, it was catharsis, dude. I saw people crying. Like, you could laugh about it, you could roll your eyes, whatever. Like, I saw people fucking crying and hugging and shit like that. Like, it was a big deal. In a lot of ways, we didn't get to really mourn Dime. Like, he died and it was just over, you know? So anyways, yeah, people love those guys. So I could understand where you're coming from. I will say, having seen the show, it's a great show. It's done very respectfully. The guys still sound great. People can say whatever they want about Phil's voice. It still sounds fantastic. Next, my homie Austin James says Pantera in the beginning was glam, hair, spandex. Then after Phil, everything changed. They all equally helped navigate it into the Pantera everyone knows today. Yes, the brothers were a very big part of Pantera from the beginning to the end. But to say Phil or Rex weren't shit to the band, without those two, I'd bet my money on Pantera would have been different, and you can't really argue that because that was a different Pantera from when they first started the band, and then when it went to fucking shit, it was two different bands. People act blind. Jesus Christ, this is just one long sentence. God damn, Austin James, put some periods in your shit. You're driving me insane. Where were we? Two different bands. People act blind to that. Anyone with common sense or put the ego away could obviously see that, but lots of fans refuse to do that. And if we're going to be completely honest, the only members in Damage Plan that were any good was Diamond Vinny. And I'm a huge fan of the material those two were a part of, and I share the same thoughts as many of the four of them were the reason Pantera is still played and listened to this day. They all were Pantera. God damn, dog. When you don't have any punctuation, it's tough to get your nuance. It's just one like vomit of words. But I get what you're saying, Austin. Not to be the fucking the grammar police or any bullshit like that, but it's very true. You know, people try to fuck with Pantera about them starting as a glam band. I don't know if it's something they chose to do, like, oh, we're gonna be glam, as much as that was the hot shit. You know, they were trying to be like Van Halen style and shit like that. From Phil showing up, they did one indie album, and then from there, rocket ship to the moon, motherfuckers. So I think Phil Anselmo showing up and being that sort of last puzzle piece to drop in, it's like one of those amazing things in terms of like if you're a believer in fate. Because if Phil Anselmo doesn't show up, for all we know, Pantera, they fucking wallow in mediocrity and never become shit. And Dimebag ends up one of these old fucking guitar guys going from bar to bar talking about how, you know, he turned down a spot in Megadeth because he wanted to play with his brother. Maybe Dimebag goes back to Dave Mustaine and says, hey man, I'm here if you need someone. Maybe Dimebag becomes famous as a member of Megadeth or another band. But what is very clear is that Phil was the last piece that made Pantera the force that they became. And Rex has just been, much like his bass, complete consistency. He's one of the OGs of the band. He runs the gamut all the way through to today. Next, my homie Scott Lowe says the Damage Plan album didn't sound like Pantera, and Pat Lockman sounded nothing like Phil. That album was more of a hard rock vibe than metal. Dime and Vinny waited and waited for Phil to get Pantera rolling again, but eventually they had to move on as musicians to be productive. Down sounded more like Pantera. The fact is that Phil was talking shit and focusing on Down and Superjoint. I think we're going to have to disagree here, because I hear that sometimes where people say Down sounded like Pantera, and I don't believe that at all. The only thing that sounds the same between Down and Pantera is Phil Anselmo himself. It sort of points back to how important Phil was to the sound of Pantera, probably just as important as the Abbott brothers, because just his voice is enough to make you say, oh, that sounds like Pantera. And if you look at Down musically, Down is a doom metal band. And other than them both being metal bands, like I don't really see that many similarities. It's like, you know, what if Eddie Vedder went and sang with another band? Would it sound like Pearl Jam? Probably, because you know Eddie Vedder's voice as a big part of that band. And it's the same with Phil there. Musically, I don't agree with that at all. If you were going to compare any of his side stuff to Pantera, really Superjoint Ritual is closer because it's really harsh thrash, but that's more adjacent to what Pantera does than what Down does. So yeah, that sort of speaks to his value. Now, to go back to Damage Plan, if you look at the entirety of what they did, their entire album there, it doesn't sound completely like Pantera. Pat Lockman, what he was trying to do was very similar to what Phil was trying to do. If you took Pat Lockman out of that Damage Plan video and you put him side by side with Phil Anselmo from the, you know, Vulgar Display of Power era, you could absolutely say these are brothers. These are two fucking weird skinhead brothers. And, you know, in terms of sounding like Pantera, I just point to the single that Damage Plan put out, Breathing New Life. It's like you took like best of Pantera shit. Like you've got the new level climb and shit like that. And to me, it sounded very much like they were trying to continue to do Pantera music just without Phil. The problem is, as much as motherfuckers want to hate on Phil, his voice, his style, all that shit, it is singular. It is signature. It is only him that can do that. Thank you very much, Scott. Moving on. And of course, we talked about Peter Steele, the late, great frontman of Typo Negative. Got a couple comments about him. My homegirl Sarah Pose says, OMG, LOL, Peter Steele had worked with a family dentist to get his fangs. And those are actually strong male pectoral muscles. He was 6'6" at least. The heavy, grimy doom is the best, and no one will ever be able to compare vocally. Their covers completely rocked. Doing those unique covers thrilled me. So different, but the jam. I was a huge follower on their tours. I got to meet my idol, and he was the sweetest. Us ladies are here. Metalhead ladies, thank you. I'm so glad. As I said, Type O Negative, the female Type O Negative fans, which was the majority of the Type O Negative fans, they were an absolute different breed, dude. I've been lucky enough to date a couple Type O Negative chicks, and like they're just always they're just always badass. Like they're badass chicks. And they're still out there. They still look beautiful. They're the super hot goth moms. I've seen y'all out there. Fuck, man, there are some insanely hot, like 45-year-old Type O Negative goth moms out there. And their kids are fucking embarrassed because everybody looks at mommy and says, God damn, she fine. But much, much, much love to all the Typo Negative fans out there. And we'll finish with my homie KG Listless, who says Pete was so alpha that he wrote an entire album to memorialize his cat. Peter Steele was an eccentric in a lot of ways. And just everything about the band was just so quirky and fun and just badass in general. You know, people say, you know, music, it's the soundtrack to your life or whatever. It's some of my fucking favorite youthful memories. Got fucking Typo Negative playing in the background. I know a lot of you feel that way. So here's to you, Peter Steele's ghost. I'm sure you're striding around somewhere with that juicy hog. Anyways, so as I mentioned earlier, you guys, if you go to killrockradio.com, just a couple plugs before I go. If you go to killrockradio.com, we've got 2 bits of merch. It's our first merch that we've ever done. And honestly, I'm looking for merch. If y'all have any ideas of shit that you think would be cool to have the Kill Rock Radio logo on or something like that. When this whole concept of Kill Rock Radio first came up, we got these koozies to sell. I moved around that time and I lost the fucking full inventory. And then I found them recently. So boom, koozies are on the menu, motherfucker. And if you go to Kill Rock Radio, you can get those koozies. If you've never had those cannabis-infused drinks, that's a new badass fucking thing to have in a can. Some of these cannabis-infused drinks, put them in a Kill Rock Radio koozie, get your sip on, get your groove on, and just have a good-ass time. Also, there's a sticker that I had made. It's a devil's head sticker illustrated by myself. And they're both just like fun items that are affordable that will help benefit the channel. As I said, every fucking dollar that gets raised is going to go right the fuck back into the channel. And you will see the fruits of that as we move on, hopefully. On that note, I'm going to let you guys go, but we will continue this conversation next time. So come on back. And we'll keep it going. Until then, I will talk to you crazy motherfuckers later. Peace.
Got any questions or comments? Send them to info@killrockradio.com. To keep up with the latest and catch up on past interviews and clips, search Kill Rock Radio on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to Kill Rock Radio wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm like, oh my God, just listen to it already. Wherever you listen to podcasts.